Hey everybody, welcome to lessonswithtroy.com. I'm Troy Brenningmeyer. Well, in this week's lesson, this is going to be volume number 4 for my A6 Basics course. And in this one, I wanted to dive in to the fretboard of an 8-string lap steel tuned to A6 tuning. And I've made all these different diagrams from the very basic to more complex, chords, scales in different keys, all kinds of good things. And this lesson, I'm going to be going through this and just showing you an easy way to look at all this because it looks complex, but it really isn't. And let's just go ahead and start with this very first one here. And this I'm calling just a very basic straight bar chords and partial chords. Okay, so once again, this is 8-string lap steel, but if you have a 6-string lap steel and you want to tune that to A6 tuning, you would start on your 6th string here and tune that, like I mentioned in the last lesson, C sharp, E, F sharp, A, C sharp, E. But for 8-string players, we've got, starting on your 8th string, we've got F sharp, A, C sharp, E, and then that repeats again, F sharp, A, C sharp, E. So like I said before, this fingerboard or this diagram, this is the most basic way that I look at the fingerboard, and this is probably a great place for you all to start. We're in the key of A here, A6 tuning, but we're also in the key of A, and I've written out your 1, 4, and 5 chord positions on the fingerboard. Okay, up here are going to be your frets. 0 means open, and we just take it 1 octave. So when you get to this 12th fret, that's a repeat of your open. So everything from 12 to 24 then is just like 0 to 12. Okay, so we've got our 1 chord here. And what all these boxes means is that's little partial chords that can give you real easy chords other than the chord that you may think that you can only get in that, home position or root position there. So right off the bat, if you played all 8 strings, that would give you an A6 chord. Well, let's jump over here because I wanted to kind of space out my boxes, my diagrams here so it wouldn't be too cluttery. Now, keep in mind, 12th fret is exactly like open, and it's also exactly like your 24th fret. So I also have a box here circling the notes F sharp, A, C sharp, E. Okay, not only is this an A6 chord, but if it's also an F sharp minor 7th chord, which is your 6th chord, and that's what these Roman numerals mean. So this means your 1 chord, the V and the 1, that'd be your 6th chord. And because it's in lowercase Roman numerals, that means it's a minor. So F sharp minor 7th. So we have F sharp, A, C sharp. That would be just an F sharp minor chord. Okay, and then that E, that's a flatted 7th. So that gives it more of a jazzy sound, that minor 7th or flat 7th. So we have our 1 chord, and we also have what's called your relative minor 6 chord in there, F sharp minor 7. Okay, and then here just a straight bar, strum all 8 strings on your 5th fret, gives you your 4 chord, D6 chord. And then 7th fret gives you your 5 chord, your E6 chord. Okay, diving in a little bit deeper, now if you just played your 4th and your 3rd string, right? That gives you the notes F sharp and A. Well, that works over our 4 chord, our D chord. So we've got our 1 chord, and right under our bar, we've got our D chord. And also, as you can tell, if you played F sharp, A, C sharp, E, that also could work as your 6 chord or relative minor chord. Okay, move this box up 2 frets. Or, grabbing these 2 strings, move that up 2 frets to your 2nd fret. It gives you the notes G sharp and B. That works over our 5 chord, our E chord. So diving in a little bit deeper, you may say, well, why does that work over a D chord? Well, F sharp and A, F sharp is your 3rd of your D chord, and A is the 5th of your D chord. Same thing here. G sharp is your 3rd of your E chord, and B is the 5th of the E chord. So really easy stuff, but man, that really, to me, that really cleared up a lot on the fingerboard for lap steel. Okay, so we've got our 1, 4, 5 right there in root position. And if you want to move this around to other keys, just keep all the spacing the same and move it to where, notice where our root note is of this A. It's on our 7th string, also on our 3rd string. So just move that and move the whole fingerboard following that to whatever key you want. For example, if you wanted this all in the key of B, B as in boy, move everything up 2 frets and the whole fingerboard moves with you, right? All the shapes and patterns move with you. Okay, check out where we've got a 1 chord here. Really easy 1 chord right under our 5 chord. If we grab same strings we grabbed over here for the 4 and the 5 chord, if we grab that 4th string and 3rd string, that gives us, once again, the major 3rd and the 5th of now our 1 chord, our A chord in this particular key. So it's very basic, but this will really get you going, I think, in A6 tuning. And let's go ahead and jump on into something a lot more complicated looking, at least, but I'll try to break it down to where it's not as crazy. Okay, so I went ahead and wrote out all the notes on your fretboard. Now, fretboard, fingerboard, that's the same thing. So on your fretboard, keeping in mind, I use sharps. Okay, and that's what this means up here. Please note A sharp equals B flat. That means an A sharp note, like right here, that's the exact same thing as a B flat note. It's just spelled different, but it'll sound exactly the same. So everything's written in sharps, but up here, A sharp equals B flat, C sharp equals D flat, D sharp equals E flat, and F sharp equals G flat. I did that because I really don't have a lot of room to put in the sharps and the flats there. So here's all your notes for A6 tuning lap steel, 8-string lap steel. Keeping in mind, strings 8 through 5, those are the exact same notes as strings 4 through 1. It's just 4 through 1 is an octave higher. And then come to your 12th fret, and then from 12 to 24, it would be the exact same as 0 to 12. So you really just have to learn 4 strings and 12 frets, and you're off to a good start. Okay, so what does all this stuff mean? Okay, so these are fretboard notes and useful straight bar chords and partial chords. So straight bar chords meaning we're not using any slants. Okay, this is just put your bar on, on the strings, and you're not slanting or anything. And down here, you can grab these strings, any combination really of these strings that I've got written there, and it'll work for these particular chords as you follow the column down. So open, okay, you grab any combination really of 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That gives you notes that work out of that A6 chord. Okay, and I just wrote out what all of these chords would be, 0 through 12. Okay, same thing. Those exact same notes work for an F sharp minor 7th chord, also called your relative minor or your 6th chord. Okay, now strings 3 and 4, that's what I had showed you before, right? That F sharp and A. There you're getting a D chord. That's the 4 chord in this key, right? In the key of A. So as you go through the rows, then, follow the columns, but you go from left to right, that's basically all your keys there. Key of A sharp or B flat, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, and so on. Okay, let's keep going down this column here. Okay, we've got a nice D major 7th chord here. Strings 4, 3, and 2. F sharp, A, and C sharp. There's your 3rd of your D major 7th, the 5th, and the major 7th. So a lot of options here, and I think it'll really open up this fingerboard for you. Okay, I'd mentioned this chord in the last lesson, a cool B9 chord. Keeping in mind, anytime you've got chords like this, the letter name and then just a 9, right? It's not like an add 9 or a major 9. It's a B9. That means that's a dominant chord, dominant 7th chord. Like it's a substitution for a B 7th chord. Kind of has that extension on it, that 9th there. So that would be strings 8, 7, 6, right? For a lower one. but really I use more strings 3, 4, 3, and 2. So up here, 4, 3, and 2. F sharp, A, and C sharp. C sharp's your ninth. A is your flat 7, and F sharp would be your 5th of your B9 chord. Just keep in mind that that has a real cool bluesy sound to it, dominant, kind of a substitution for B7. And then down here, now you've got another dominant, or notes that work out of these dominant 7th chords. An F sharp 7. Grab basically any of these strings. As you can tell, I'm kind of avoiding that 7th string, and also my 3rd string, but you can play any of the other strings, and those notes work over this chord. And same for a nice C sharp minor, our 3 chord in the key of A, minor 3 chord. Strings 6 and 5. It gives you that root and flat 3rd. Same thing, an octave higher, strings 2 and 1. So a lot of this stuff, it repeats, just like F sharp, A, C sharp, E, and then it repeats strings 4 through 1. Same thing here. Depending on if you want a lower sound to your chord, or if you want to use the higher strings, you get a higher sound. Okay, let's see if we got anything else on this one to teach you about. Okay, so if we keep going, I made all these scale charts too, where I took kind of what they call the caged system of teaching scales. Caged meaning the key of C, A, G, E, D. Those are really popular keys. So instead of me doing all the keys, I think you can kind of get the point, at least with 5 keys, where these shapes are. And I really wanted to dive into this particular idea because I really use this a lot to think of the scale in numbers, right? And start hearing those numbers and start seeing the shapes. So if we just look at this fingerboard for a while. Okay, let's look. And what I want you to look at is don't get confused by all the details of it. Kind of step back. And what I want you to see is I want you to see straight shapes. I want you to see straight lines up and down. And I also want you to see diagonal lines. Now, if you just kind of step back and you look at this and you think straight lines up and down and diagonal lines. Now you're starting to see kind of the way I visualize, and lots of other people, I believe, too, visualize the fretboard. It should look like a piece of graph paper to you, where you start seeing shapes on it. Okay? So first off, let's look at our straight lines up and down. Okay? Our 1, 4, and 5 chords are straight lines up and down. That means, what I mean by straight lines is the dots here, where they form certain shapes or patterns. Okay, and then the lines and the frets, that forms more like the graph paper, right? Where these I would think of as the dots. Okay, so notice the straight lines up and down. Diagonal lines meaning like this. See this long diagonal line here, or a diagonal line here, kind of going down from right to left. Or here we're going down from left to right. Okay, some things don't have notes in them, right? Don't have dots on them, and some do. Okay, let's dive into this and I'll explain what all this means. First off, if I didn't say off the very top, your frets are going from left to right, 0 to 12. Okay, the numbers at least, and they're going up and down. The strings, it's just like tablature. These are your strings, right? Strings 1 through 8. Okay, now, this is our A major scale, where A is the root, and that's what's in red here with the big R, root note of the scale. So those are all A notes in this particular key. But this is all movable. All these shapes, once you learn them, it's just like a conveyor belt. It can move left and right, and all of these shapes move with it. Okay. So let's just keep going here. A, so in an A major scale, you've got A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. You've got 3 sharps, F, C, and G. Okay, but if you don't think necessarily about the note names, but you put numbers to everything, A's are root or 1, but I'm just going to call it the root. B's 2, C sharp is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F sharp is 6, G sharp is 7, and then instead of going to 8, it starts back over again, A with our root. Now, let's just start with this first string. What I want you to see is now start looking at this and thinking of the spaces in between the dots. Okay? Notice how there's not a space between 7 and root or 3 and 4. That's real important to start visualizing these shapes on single strings. Okay? And that happens for every single string. Let's call it a row, right? Or a string from left to right. You're always 3 and 4 is always going to be right next to each other, and 7 and your root is always going to be right next to each other. Everything else going left to right has an empty fret in between it. Okay, so that kind of takes out some notes of the fretboard to make it a little bit easier for you to start seeing this key, right? It's jumping out at you now. It should be, at least. Okay, what I want you to do is use the 1, 4, and 5 chord position to start getting a bearing on the straight up and down shapes. Okay, now when you're going to play a major scale, let's play it in reverse. Let's start root. All you got to do is do follow the numbers. Root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root. That would just be one certain shape. Now, there's all kinds of different combinations of that. We could have went root 7, or we could have went root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root. Okay, and or maybe stayed on one string. Root 7, 6, 5, and then got our 4 here, 3, 2, root. Or you can go up. Root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root. But as you can start to see that it's up to you to really come up with shapes that work for you. And it could be, you can do all kinds of different shapes with this. As far as what I'm talking about shapes is ways to organize the major scale. Okay, but what you really want to start doing is seeing these patterns. Let's just start right here and see this root 7, 6. See, root 7, 6, or root 7, 6. Just different ways of getting kind of the same thing, but different ways of doing it. Okay. Other things that, like in the last lesson, remember how I talked about intervals of a sixth? Okay, let's look at that here for a second. Okay, so if let's say we started on third right here to root. Okay, remember how we played in that last lesson and I was doing forward slants? Okay, check out, let's just start on our 6th string and follow the scale up. 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll just do that much. And we're going to start here on our 3rd string and play root, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Now try to make all the other dots disappear and just see dots on your 6th string and your 3rd string. I'm sure there's probably technology that can do that now, but just if you can, just make everything else disappear and you're just focusing on the notes on your 6th string and your 3rd string. Okay, notice how 3 and root is a straight bar. 4 and 2 is a forward slant. Okay, 5 and 3 is a forward slant, and then 6 and 4 would be a straight bar. So there would just be one example of a practical way of thinking about the fingerboard and using this to your advantage. The same thing would be true if we did 5th string and 2nd string. Okay, but now we're going to do, instead of a forward slant, notice 4 and 2, right there to there, that was a forward slant. Now if we do strings 5 and 5th string and 2nd string, make all the other dots disappear, just think 5th string, 2nd string. we got five, the fifth of our chord or our key, third, and then we do a reverse slant to get the fourth and the seventh of the key. Okay, and actually, let me take that back here. Instead of, it would be five. So sorry, fourth and the sixth right there, and then we can keep going with another forward slant here. Oh, sorry, reverse slant to get these two notes, and then a straight bar. So straight bar, fifth string, second string, fifth string, second string, but now we do a reverse slant to get the fourth and sixth of our key. And then we move it up a whole step, means 2 frets, get the seventh of the key in the fifth, and then a root in the sixth. Okay, now let's do, remember how I talked about thirds and the shapes of thirds, intervals of a third, let's say. Okay, this is real clear to me how you can see this. It'd be strings 2 and 1 now. We have a straight bar, and then we come right here with a forward slant, another forward slant, and then a straight bar. And you can keep going up the scale that way, but basically all you're doing is you're harmonizing 2 notes of the scale, right? We're going 3, 4, 5, 6 on one string, and then 5, 6, 7 root. And you're playing them together, and that's where you get those forward slant shapes. Keep going. You can keep going up the fingerboard. So what I've done is, like I said, this is the key of A, but I've also done the key of C. That's what that looks like. And notice the it's the same kind of shapes, but now everything's kind of different on your fingerboard. Here's your 1, 4, and 5, whereas opposed to, let's go back to that key of A. Notice how there was our 1, 4, 5. Right? Open, 5th, 7th, the A, B, C. So in the key of C, our 1 chord starts here on our 3rd fret. But it's the same spacing, right? We've just shifted everything up 3 frets, really, for the key of C. But all the root, thirds, all the shapes stay the same. So you can see the benefits now. Instead of thinking about all these different letter names to your scale, if you think of everything as just numbers, it makes it way easier. Okay, so the key of E. But anyways, I'll double check these too before I put them up on the site. But yeah, if you bought the lesson, this lesson, you downloaded it. These are all PDFs, high quality PDFs that you can print out and use to really help you understand the fingerboard. So let's go back and see if we got anything else that I can think of here. So this is a lot of information, to get down and to memorize. These might be good as kind of a reference. If you're in a certain key, what notes work within that key, what chords might you be able to get. But most importantly, what I think of is, instead of necessarily thinking about all of this stuff, if you can take one little straight bar and just understand, think of everything in numbers, like I said before, understand you've got your 6th chord, A6 chord, you've also got your relative minor, the minor 6th chord of your key, you've got your 4 chord right there, you've got a major 7th version of that 4 chord, you've got B9, which is a dominant 2 chord, you've got F sharp 7, which would be a dominant 6th chord of your key. And you've also got C sharp minor, which is your minor 3 chord. And that's just all of this stuff is all different versions of the same thing, really. It's just in different keys. But the concept is all the same. This is all basically a repeat of this, just in different keys. Okay, so that's really the best way I can think of it, to really simplify it. Okay, same thing with this, let's get back to those shapes, like I was saying, diagonal lines and whatnot. Now, if you want to adjust these scales, once you know your major scale, let's say your A major scale, and you want to play something, if you play this straight, this is just a major scale. It's going to sound really happy. It's not going to sound bluesy at all. Okay, you may ask yourself, well, how do I get more of a bluesy sound? And I'll hopefully be doing diagrams showing you pentatonic scales and blues scales and things like that. But the idea is, if you think of everything in numbers, let's go back to this little, my eye goes back to here because this is a nice root on your first string. A nice bluesy sound is to flat the seventh. So what that means is take this major seventh. That's a real happy sound. Let's say you wanted a bluesy sound. Move that back one fret. You're flatting it, right? Same thing with your thirds. Flat your thirds. Move your thirds back one fret, and that gives you a nice bluesy sound. The other thing is to get what's called a blue note. See this empty space here? Playing from 5, flatting the 5 to 4 has a great bluesy sound to it. So flat 7, move that 7th. Notice how it's always the same. 7th and root is always right next to each other, 7th and root. So if you're jamming, let's say in the key of A or whatever key you're in, and you're playing this and you play that major 7th, but it's a bluesy song, it's going to sound awful. It's going to sound way too happy. Flat that 7th. Same thing with your third. That third's kind of ambiguous. You can go back and forth between that major third and minor third, slide from minor third to major third. Same thing here. 4, remember how I said in between 4 and 5? That's your blue note. That sounds really bluesy and cool. Now what you end up getting then is you get a real cool thing going here with your chromatics. 2, flat third, major third, 4, right here, flat 5 or sharp 4, and then you can keep going from there. But those notes there all over your neck is a great place to get lots of neat sounds. And notice how I always like to know where the root note is that's real close to maybe that kind of lick. 5, flat 5, 4, 3, flat 3, 2, root there. Notice the diagonal line. Same thing here. Instead of maybe playing all this on the same string, go root, 7, 6, and then jump 5, 4, 3, 2, root. All kinds. That's just up to you really to come up with your own ways of thinking about this. But my advice to you is to do think of everything in either straight up and down or diagonal lines. And I think the shapes will start jumping out at you. I hope you enjoyed this and it really helped you with understanding the fretboard, and check out my site, for the PDFs of these, and that way you can print them out and have them. Okay, we'll see you on the next lesson. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you later. Thanks.